Today we will discuss the cell proliferation and that receptors and how they are related with the and glycans and which of these glycans plays a role towards the cell signaling, intracellular cell signaling that will cause the proliferation or triggering of apoptosis. So we will first discuss the proliferation. So we will not just discuss about N-glycans but also about the O-glycans. So when it comes to the cell proliferations, the TGF beta is the most prominent receptors that helps in the cell proliferations, and it forms a tetramer that can be seen here. It is the combinations of TGF or TGF receptor 1 and TGF receptor 2, and it has the N-glycans that are decorated with the fucose in their core structure, and because of that this fucose plays an important role towards, and this not just fucose, this whole glycan structure plays an important role towards the intercellular triggering of pathways that helps in the proliferation of the cells, and we have discussed the detail about these pathways in one of our videos. You can refer to that videos to understand how the intercellular signaling pathways got triggered. So in this we will only cover that the whenever these TGF beta receptors uh, get activated, it will lead to the phosphorylation of this tetramer, and that will cause this phosphorylation of the SMAD pathway that will trigger apoptosis. Not apoptosis, that will trigger these cell proliferations, and also not just proliferation. In some cases, it also helps in this differentiations of the cells based on the cell type and based on the mutations that occur in the tumor cells. Now we will cover about these DAT receptors. There are three common DAT receptors that are known as this first receptor, DR4 receptor, and DR5 receptors. Why they are called DAT receptors? Because when the ligands bind to these receptors, it will trigger apoptosis or cell death, and this is very much essential during the tumor cells, as if one can activate this kind of receptors or intracellular signaling pathways. Because of these receptors, it can trigger apoptosis. And in this also, this kind of all these receptors has the glycan structures. Though the representation is not accurate, the FAS has two N-glycan structures, DR4 has one N-glycan structures and O-glycan structures, and DR5 has no N-glycan structures but only O-glycan structures. And we can see that in the intercellular domain of this transmembrane protein, DR4 also has this uh, glycosylation within the O-glycosylation in the intercellular domain. And how they trigger is that uh, when these FAS receptors get interact as FAS receptor interact with the ligand, it will trigger this FADD pathway or DISC pathways, and all or these pro-caspase 8 pathways that will trigger this finally leads to this apoptosis. And in this case, the cleavage of this caspase 8 will also occurs, and if the ligands bind to this DR4, it can trigger this trial pathways that will cause apoptosis, and DR4 and DR5 both will trigger these trial pathways. And what happens in the case of cancer cells is that the glycosylations are not proper, and most of these glycosylations are truncated, and because of that because of the truncations, the receptors will not be able to properly bind with the ligand, and this will reduce the efficiency of the uh, cell signaling pathways triggered through these kind of receptors. And because of the change in glycosylation, the cells might become more reluctant towards apoptosis, as these receptors are not functioning well whenever there is a mutations that leads to the change in the glycosylations profile of these receptors. And this is not just the one reason of the cells become more tolerant towards apoptosis. There are other reasons also, such as the physical barriers are formed by aberrant glycosylations, and that is commonly known as layer glycocalyx layer around the cell membrane. And the higher the thickness of this glycocalyx layer, the more physical barrier, or the more chances of the immune cells to not detect the tumor cells increases. However, for this topic, the change in the glycosylation will reduce the ligand interact to these receptors, and thereby the chances of apoptosis are low in those kind of cells. So these are some of the informations about cell proliferations and that receptors. If you need to understand more in detail about these receptors, you can go through the reference that has been provided in the description. That's all for this video. Thank you for your time.